Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. I had to run and pee really quickly. I'm gonna wait for everyone to join. Hello. Hey guys, sorry, I had to pee really quickly. I'm gonna wait until everyone joins back up, and then I'm going to do the Fully Nourished update and then talk about the pill bleed, and then I'll move on to the other questions. So when it comes to Fully Nourished, you guys, I'm really excited. I'm just putting the finishing touches on it. There's an end in sight for sure. I am planning on being completely done with the program by the end of next week. I'm just kind of finishing up the recipe book, the handouts. You know, it's a very comprehensive program. It's not like I'm saying like, here's an ebook. You know what I mean? There's over 20 different handouts, you know, for a health journal and tracking your metabolic markers. The recipe book has over 100 recipes. It talks about the nutrition. It has a guide, you know, on nutrients and supplementation. So it's a very comprehensive program. There's about 20 lessons, I want to say. I don't know for sure, but a few different modules. I talk about so the first is an introduction, working on your mental game, working on how to track your progress, and then the second lesson is all devoted to nutrition and just going through, you know, nutrient-dense foods, how to build your plate, macronutrients, why it's so important to get your nutrients from your food over supplements, meal timing and food frequency, how much to eat, portion control, all that good stuff. And then the third module is about the lifestyle recommendations. So you can't heal your metabolism without doing the proper lifestyle things like proper sleep, proper movement and exercise, proper light, and then I also give you recommendations for supplementation. Now, the supplements in Fully Nourished are mostly food-based, so I have a lot of DIY supplements. I want you making your own for the most part because I want your body to have a break from a lot of the inflammatory fillers found in supplements. A lot of women are on like stacks and stacks of supplements that they have no idea why they're on them, what they're for, and they're actually irritating them more than helping them. And so I kind of like have you use a lot of food-based supplements, and then I give you options for if you want to like actually take a few different supplements, what you might want to look for. And then the fourth module is about taking it to the next level. So that is about like liver detoxification and cycle syncing. We have stress reduction and like mental health, like working on your self-image and your body image. And then the last or the fifth module is all about like preparing, like getting your kitchen ready, treating your kitchen like an apothecary, making sure you have what you need when you eat out, like what do you look for, packing food, you know, when you go to work or you're on the go. You know, I just thought of everything, and then module 6 is kind of like pulling it all together. So I have like weight loss troubleshooting and you know, reminding you that this is long term, this is not a diet. And then the end is going to be all about, it has tutorials. So tutorials on how to do like hot coffee enemas, tutorial on how to do castor oil packs, like all the tools that you need for like the tutorials of how-tos throughout the program are going to be in that last like tutorial-based section. And then I have a lot of extra bonus modules that I'm going to work on intermittently after it launches. So there's going to be one on like progesterone therapy, thyroid therapy, just different like little more, I guess, tweaks or intensive parts of your health journey that once you've gotten everything implemented, if you're still not seeing progress, then maybe that would be things to look into. But I'll be working on those like after it launches because I just want to get you guys like the bulk of the information. And then just understand that Fully Nourished is always going to be updated. So nutrition science changes, and I will always take that into account. And as you know, Fully Nourished changes and grows. Whenever you signed up, you will be grandfathered in. You know what I mean? So like whenever I learn something, you learn something. And then there will be a private Facebook group connected to Fully Nourished. So all of the students, all of you ladies that are really focused on healing are going to actually be included in the private Facebook group where you can ask questions. You guys can find accountability partners, things like that. You're just, you have a place to go where it's almost like a forum. You can like go and share things. Oh, I found this product, blah, blah, blah. And so Fully Nourished is almost done. I really have an end in sight, but I'm like, I don't want to announce quite a date yet, but I'm thinking it's going to be pretty much done, like completed mostly by the end of next week. And then it's going to be launched the following week. And remember, it will be available for 2 weeks for that $100 off price. But yeah, thank you guys for being so patient. I'm so excited to get it out to you. It's the end is near. It's almost there. I just like have been, it's like one of those things where if I had all the time in the world to devote to it, I would already have been done. But I have, I'm running a full-time practice, and I'm also working on Fully Nourished. So it's like this constant like balancing act of just trying to get everything accomplished and done. But thank you for being patient, and it's almost there. And then for the question on the pill bleed that Shelby asked, she was talking about, can you kind of explain the science behind the pill bleed? And, there is some science about the pill bleed. When you have to understand that the pill is a very political subject, because birth control used to be illegal due to the Catholic Church and like Puritan culture. And so it was like they had to figure out how to bring contraception into the the public without actually calling it contraception. And so it was called, it was said that the pill was for regulating women's issues and regulating the cycle. And it was in their best interest to make it look like when you were on the pill that you had a normal, natural cycle. So, that last week of your pill, you usually have sugar pills, right? They have no hormones in them. And so the first 3 weeks you're taking synthetic hormones, synthetic estrogens, and then synthetic progestins, which act a lot like estrogens in the body, but they do have some progesterone-like effects, but not any of the good effects. And so what can happen is that last week that you're taking the sugar pill, you get a dramatic drop in your synthetic hormones, right? Because for 3 weeks, you're taking synthetic hormones, synthetic estrogen, synthetic progesterone. It's shutting your cycle down. It's filling your body with all these xenoestrogens or fake estrogens. And then that last week you take nothing. And so you get a sudden drop in synthetic hormones. And any sudden drop in hormones is going to induce a uterine shed or a bleed. There's not necessarily, like, they do say that the reason why they have to make you bleed every so often is to shed that uterine lining that's built up. Remember, estrogen builds the uterine lining. So you're taking lots of fake estrogens every day. And so that's going to build up uterine lining, artificially. And so you do need to shed it from time to time. However, there's no need to shed it every 28 days. Like there are doctors that say really a pill bleed is not medically necessary every 28 days. It could be every 50 days. It could be every 100 days. It's just whenever you take sugar pills and get a sudden drop in hormones. But it's not a true period is when you ovulate and then you shed the uterine lining that was prepared for that potentially fertilized egg. And in that period, you're also shedding the egg that like shriveled up and died and was not fertilized. That's a true period, right? Whereas a bleed is just from withdrawal of hormones. It's just a withdrawal. And it's inducing a uterine shed. It's not necessarily a true period. I hope that makes sense. I know it's a little complicated, but it's pretty much just you're inducing a bleed without actually needing to have a monthly bleed, because why would uterine lining be built up if there's no baby to be fertilized? Like, there's no reason, right? So that's kind of the point there. How do I reduce insulin in my body to ovulate and not go super low carb? You heal your cells, you guys. So inflammation is what causes you to be insulin resistant, whether that's due to endotoxins and toxins stemming from the liver or gut, or stress. You are not responding to insulin properly, probably due to inflammation. Remember that low progesterone can make us insulin resistant. Low T3 makes us insulin resistant because we're not burning glucose properly. We cannot burn it efficiently. And so why would the body respond to insulin? We need to make sure that we're consuming the right fats, because remember, if we're eating tons of polyunsaturated fats and our cells are burning free fatty acids, then our body's not burning glucose. And free fatty acids are not what you want to burn. People are like, oh, shouldn't we burn fats? And I'm like, it depends on what fats you're burning. It is a little bit more complicated than just reducing insulin in the body. It's very interesting to me that people look at, like a low carb diet, just because you're removing glucose and your body doesn't have to secrete as much insulin doesn't mean that you're healing insulin resistance. Your cells are still not responding to insulin. And a study just came out yesterday, I just read it, that keto and low carb actually makes us insulin resistant. There's proof, solid proof, that people are actually more insulin resistant resistant after keto and a low carb diet than before they are, specifically in the liver. Keto is very damaging to the liver because remember, you guys, your cells mostly burn glucose. I mean, some of your cells, like your heart cells, for example, when you're at rest, meaning you're just relaxing, might burn some free fatty acids. However, your cells are mostly burning glucose, specifically the brain, which is the highest energy taker of your whole body. And so your body, if you're not providing it with glucose, has to manufacture glucose. And the way that it does that is by breaking itself down. So the goal is not to reduce the amount, the fuel that our body needs. We have to actually make sure our body can burn that fuel by reducing inflammation, focusing on gut health, liver health, getting stress down, and promoting thyroid health or T3 health. You cannot burn glucose properly if there's not progesterone in the picture, there's no T3 in the picture, or low T3, and there's gut issues. It just is impossible, and reducing the amount of glucose you're consuming doesn't fix the issue. Your glasses look fabulous. Thank you. I'm sorry they're like, blue reflectant. I just get the blue reflectant on my eyeglasses, and my contacts were bugging me today, so I had to wear my glasses. Thoughts on getting pregnant later in life? Is it safe? I think that's like a personal choice. I probably won't have a child until a little later on as well. So, I'm honestly not worried about it. I think I'm more worried about like the woman's health. As we age and we get like a lifetime of bad habits underneath our belt, our body is wearing down over time. But there's nothing to stop us from reversing that damage and getting ourselves into a healthy, well place. And why not? You know what I mean? I guess there is more risk like from a Western medicine perspective, but as long as you have adequate levels of progesterone and your thyroid is really good, I don't see why it would be a problem. But of course, you want to discuss that with your doctor, you want to discuss that with your partner, and kind of figure out what's right for you. What is the best way to heal your gut from IBS, gastritis? Any specific foods to eat and avoid? Yeah, so at that point, like when you're like very like IBS, first of all, like IBS is usually due to small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, but that's like not really acknowledged by the Western medicine yet. However, you can still get IBS antibiotics prescribed to you. One of them, the popular ones, is Xifaxan. Now, it doesn't work for everybody. However, like you can chat with your doctor about it. Sometimes they will prescribe it for IBS, and it can really clear the digestive tract of a lot of the bacteria that are causing those IBS type symptoms. Remember that IBS is also driven by estrogen, because remember, the bile from your liver and your gallbladder gets dumped at the top of your small intestine, and you want that bile to flow. And so if things are moving very slowly through your digestive tract, then you're gonna have estrogen being reabsorbed into the small intestine when it's supposed to be carried out. And so your goal for IBS is to make sure things start moving very smoothly through. And fiber and fibrous foods are very irritating. If they're coming out on the other end, if any food makes it undigested to your large intestine, you're gonna mess up your gut. You are going to mess it up, because if you're having undigested food in your stool, that means you had a bunch of undigested food going through your small and large intestine. That should scare the shit out of you. So if anything's coming out on the other end, first thing is anything that came out on the other end is not being digested well and should probably not be eaten for a while. And then, soft, very easy to digest foods are where it's at. So, think about like what you would feed a baby. That's kind of what you got to feed yourself, like broth and, butternut squash that's really well cooked and mashed with grass-fed butter and cinnamon, collagen, excessive amounts of gelatin and collagen, organ meats if you can eat them, or taking them in a desiccated form, like bone marrow, really healing foods that are very easy to digest and lack a lot of fiber. Really ripe fruits or cooked fruits are really good, fruit juices, anything that's just gonna provide your body with a lot of nutrients without actually forcing your body to do a lot of energy intensive work to break it down. I need recipes to start eating this way. Can you recommend something? That's what Fully Nourished is coming out for, you guys. It's very difficult for me to, I guess like put forth recipes without explaining why you're eating what you're eating. I think a lot of people are really confused about what to eat these days for good reason. There's a lot of quacks out there just telling you to eat anything that worked for them, not realizing that they're doing more harm than good. And so, I think it's important to understand why you're eating what you're eating, and it makes it a lot easier to stick to. So that's why Fully Nourished will really include over 100 recipes, and I will continue to update that. And then there will be, in the near future, the blog is actually being worked on to the point where the blog is going to be really, really intensive, have a lot of content available for you in both recipes and information. And once YouTube comes out as well, like I'll be showing you a lot more of like what I eat in a day and my day-to-day life. My temps are max 97.34 in the mornings. Is that a thyroid issue? I don't necessarily say like, oh, that's a thyroid issue. You more have to look at it in conjunction with your pulses, your symptoms, and ask yourself, like, is your metabolism functioning optimally? If not, probably, you might have a suppressed thyroid, even if it's just subclinical. Your goal is to have a waking temp between 97.6 and 98.6. Or really 97.8 and 98.6, honestly, and get it to raise throughout the day. Is it important to get tested for celiac? Why is being gluten intolerant not enough? Symptoms overlap and I'm fine being gluten-free. Why should I get tested for celiac? Thanks. Why get tested for celiac? Yeah, I agree. I don't think like it's necessary. It's like one of those things where, well, if I'm going to avoid gluten, like who cares if I have celiac or not? I just don't do well on gluten. You know what I mean? Started using magnesium oil. Is that enough, or should I supplement orally too? I think that they have different benefits. I think both is really necessary, especially in a very like hypometabolic state. Your cells become leaky and they cannot retain magnesium properly. This is why like all these people are like, eat magnesium, take magnesium, and I'm like, you really do need excessive magnesium when your body's not functioning properly. Once you have adequate levels of thyroid hormones, specifically T3, your cells can actually retain magnesium pretty well, and you don't have such a high need. But until that point, you really do need more. And so, I don't know, I think topically is helpful, but in conjunction with internal. However, most magnesium forms can be actually quite harsh on the gut. And so I really like a bicarbonate just made with mineral water and milk of magnesia. Just make sure the milk of magnesia is just milk of magnesia and doesn't have any weird mineral oils or anything like that. What should we look for in a progesterone cream? So for progesterone cream, I really like Smoky Mountain Naturals or Emerita brand on Amazon. You're just looking for something that's pretty natural, doesn't have a lot of weird fillers or ingredients, and also provides the dosage that you want, it's buildable dosage. But that's what I look for. I really have heard great things about both those brands, Smoky Mountain Naturals and Emerita. And they're both available on Amazon. I can't get my hands on smoked oysters. Any alternatives next to beef liver? Yeah, so, like oysters are really, really powerful, and you can find them on like Thrive Market and Amazon if you can't get your hands on them at a local grocery store. Sometimes I'll just stock up on them if I can't find them. You always want to make sure they're packed in olive oil just because they are a lot of times packed in canola oil. But you can do fresh oysters if you can get your hands on them, or you can also do like, there's really no alternative quite for oysters, but like shrimp and octopus do tend to be like pretty similar nutritionally. They're not quite as potent, but they can do the trick for sure if you just cannot get your hands on them. Hi, is it okay to eat bread and making buckwheat, corn, olive oil, and a little soda? Asking because it's whole grain and I cut all grains, only feeling good with white rice. I do not like whole grains. Whole grains are awful for you. Anything that contains the bran is going to bind to nutrients in your gut and steal precious nutrients away from your body and take it with you when you're carrying it out. I really like, like yesterday on my stories, for example, I'm not eating gluten-free sourdough. People are like, where'd you get gluten-free sourdough? I'm like, no, that's real sourdough. That's wheat sourdough, but it's made with white flour. And so when the sour starter, when sourdough is traditionally fermented, the sour starter will eat up the gluten. And so it's not technically gluten-free, but it's pretty low gluten. And so you want actually, like when you do grains, in my opinion, they should be as processed as possible and should not include the bran. White rice, white rice, spelt, anything that's really easy to break down is good. Also, olive oil should never be baked. It should not be heated to high temperatures. So it can become rancid and then it just inflames you. So you want to stick to like coconut oil, even if it's just refined so it doesn't have that coconut flavor. That can be a lot better for you. Spelt sourdough homemade tends to be the best alternative if you're trying to do like something that is not necessarily gluten-free but easy to digest. Spelt sourdough does tend to be good, or just regular sourdough made with just water, salt, flour, and a sour starter. Remember, traditional sourdough really shouldn't have yeast in it. Did you say that vitamin E oil is okay to use in the vagina? I always get pain after sex when I pee and so on, and now use steroid cream and I do not like it. Will you share a SIBO diet later? Okay, so vitamin E oil, I don't know about using in the vagina. I'm really not sure. And then because vitamin E is really hard to find pure, it's not extracted from wheat germ oil anymore. It's usually extracted from soybeans, which is not pure. And then I always get pain after sex when I pee and so on, and now use steroid cream and I do not like it. Okay, so pain after sex can be like if you're not lubricating well, it can be a vitamin A and vitamin E deficiency. I wouldn't like put it into my vagina, but I would maybe consider getting lots of vitamin A rich foods and maybe even some vitamin E in my diet. And then I'm not really sure. Like, I've seen inflammation really cause pain after sex, and over time, like getting lubrication really good and getting inflammation, just overall systemic inflammation down can help. Yeah, I'm not really sure what to use for that necessarily. Like, I've never applied anything intravaginally. And then, will you share a SIBO diet later? I don't really believe in SIBO diets. I believe in really easily digestible diets, and everyone with SIBO is a little different. But I guess when it comes to SIBO, it's pretty much just stay the hell away from fiber. That's pretty much it, is do not eat anything that bacteria can eat. And that is going to be mostly fibers. Any kind of undigestible fibers are really out for a while, and I would stick to really like easily digested starches, so they're digested really far up in the digestive tract. Ripe fruits, or like things like cooked fruits, applesauce, or like fruit juices, they'll be absorbed directly almost into the stomach, and they won't even make it to the small intestine or the large intestine. Remember, your goal is to eat carbs that are going to be so easily digested and absorbed that they don't make it to where the bacteria is living to feed that bacteria. And fiber just tends to be the most slow digesting thing, and so it is going to like really feed bacteria and any kind of like fungus in the gut. Like, I had horrible digestive issues when I came off of keto because my digestive system was working so slow, and so I couldn't handle any fiber, and I just kind of like gave myself permission to just like not eat any fiber, and it was the best thing I ever did for my digestion. I never have had better digestion than not eating excessive amounts of fiber. It's ridiculous. Like, all these cruciferous vegetables I was trying to eat and like raw leafy greens, I was just like bloated and just like, ugh. And like the minute that I was just like, you know what, stop eating shit that doesn't feel good, and that's when I started to feel my best. I quit coffee in Feb, switched to decaf. Since then, I get dizzy and feel funny anytime I have caffeine, like a lot. Is it normal or is it an issue? You probably just don't tolerate caffeine well. The reason for this is usually that if caffeine isn't eliciting a stress response, it is because you're on a starvation diet. Your body does not have enough carbohydrates. Remember that caffeine is pro-metabolic, and so it does raise your metabolic rate. But remember, that's like hitting the gas and having no fuel in the tank if you're on a starvation diet, specifically a low-carb diet. To me, caffeine and low-carb diets are literally a match made in hell on earth. It's like literally, like I said, hitting the gas, no fuel in the tank. So when it comes to tolerating caffeine, it must be drank after a meal that does contain carbohydrates, and it must come before a meal that contains carbohydrates. And I'm not talking about like, oh, I get my carbs from broccoli. I'm talking about like some fruit or putting sugar in your coffee. A lot of people tell me like, oh, I get anxiety when I drink coffee, and I'm like, coconut sugar, coconut sugar, coconut sugar, and they drink their coffee and they're like, oh, it's fine. And I'm like, yeah, because when you drink coffee, your needs for sugar in that moment go up. And if you don't have it, your body will make it. And how does your body make it? It raises cortisol, it raises adrenaline to break down your tissues, send them to the liver to make blood glucose. That's called gluconeogenesis. And you always need to be concerned with it, because if at any time you feel jittery, anxious, your body is manufacturing its own sugar. That's what's happening. That's what's occurring. Probiotic or fermented foods we should eat after antibiotics. Hell no, you guys. Even Google that. You'll find study after study that shows that your body is very good at recovering after an antibiotic. And when you actually put probiotics into the picture, it actually prevents your body from maintaining bacterial balance afterwards. Probiotics should not be taken lightly, you guys. Probiotics are usually do more harm than good unless they are spore-based probiotic. Lactobacillus specifically end up causing a lot of lactic acid production, and in somebody that's already inflamed or acidic, it can cause serious issues. So probiotics should not be taken lightly, and I would recommend doing the research, but you'll find that probably like 6 to 12 weeks after antibiotics, you should really avoid fermented foods and probiotics for the most part, and let your body kind of restore bacterial balance. It's hard to stay calm when you see a freaking beard when you look in the mirror. I got rid of most of the mirrors because I don't want to look at myself. Ugh, it seems hopeless sometimes. I understand, you guys, and I know it can be really, really difficult. I was at that point at one point too. I literally despised my body, my face, just everything. It didn't feel like I was in my own skin. If you have hirsutism, I really recommend doing your research and experimenting with topical DHEA. Many people have said that they have seen a dramatic reduction of hair growth. Now, I'm not really sure. I've never tried it, and so I haven't really looked into it. However, a lot of people have said that that really helps. Green tea masks really help, and turmeric masks really help. Again, I'm not really sure. I haven't really experimented with it, but I have a lot of people have said that it helps. Also, making sure your progesterone levels are up. They directly block estrogen. Progesterone directly blocks testosterone. And so it can help as well. So I know it's tough, you guys. I stick with it, and I know it's difficult to stay calm. I think it's really important to remember that you only have a limited amount of energy in your day, and if you are going to devote your energy to worry and devote your energy to hating your body, you have no energy left to spend on channeling that energy into caring for your body, focusing on the things you have to be grateful for, focusing on the things that you do have and how fortunate you are. You won't have any energy left to do that. And I know that can be tough. I'm not saying that it's not a struggle, a daily struggle. However, you only have a limited amount of energy, and I wasted way too much time just constantly being harsh on my body and worrying about things I could not control. And I really, at one point, decided that I need to put my energy into things I can control, which is day after day putting one foot in front of the other, doing things that I may not even feel like doing or want to do, but I'm going to do anyways because my body only deserves the best. And all of those symptoms are signs that my body is crying out for attention. That's what symptoms are. It is your body screaming at you that something is not right. And so we need to see them for what they are, is a wake-up call, rather than see them as, oh, it's my body betraying me, or oh, my body's so stupid, or oh, my body's this. Do you not think that your brain is not affecting every single one of your cells? It is. And so it's so important. And this is the hardest part of healing. Hardest part. Period. End of story. It is the hardest part. It's very easy, in my opinion, to change the physical things, and very difficult to change the mental game. But once you do the mental things, the physical things are like breathing, easy as breathing, because you finally come to terms with the fact that the only way out of this is through it. You know what I mean? That's the only way out, right? What are we going to do? Are we going to shrug our shoulders and say, I give up, I failed, I'm giving up? Or am I going to keep going ahead no matter how hard it is? You know what I mean? And I know that's so tough. It's just tough. It's not easy. And it's a daily struggle. I actually really like one of the most important things that I did for myself was sit down with myself and visualize and kind of, I don't want to say like the word manifest, I don't really like that, but I guess like your actions should match your intentions. So if your intentions are to heal and your intentions are to see change, what makes us think that that to create change, we don't have to change? You know what I mean? And so I'll actually show you because I'm in my office right now. I got 2 things that I've utilized now. I utilize all the time. I do either the 5-minute journal in the morning or this sunrise manifesto. This is the one I just got a new one because it's like a 16-week guided morning meditation. It's like literally, it takes 5 minutes and it just asks you like every day to get real with what you're grateful for, ask yourself what you want to work on, and then it gives you like a little page for a brain dump, and you just dump whatever's in your mind on that page, and it takes 5 minutes, so it's a really easy habit to keep. And then I also really love this Law of Attraction daily planner. So this is available on Amazon. It's $30 and it's the Freedom Mastery one, and I'll show you guys it one day, but it has like a fold out vision board. It tells you how to set goals. It shows you how to like set your daily schedule. It's so wonderful as a tool to like get really real with yourself and really plan your year out, you know, like month to month. It has you do a monthly review, like get real with yourself. What could you have done differently? What do you want to continue doing the same? Like, it's really good for just daily having, you know, your habits in front of you. It has a daily tracker and it tells you like what intentions you want to set for the day and just like all that good stuff. Like, it's a great all-in-one planner, but also like it really helps you put your goals onto paper and constantly be reminded of them. So I really recommend like getting real with yourself, you guys, and actually saying that if I want change, I have to change and I have to create change. And that starts in your mind. It starts in your brain. I always say that 3 pounds of gray matter in between your skull is the most important part of your whole healing journey. Fully Nourished sounds fantastic. Hearing it for the first time today, thank you. Oh, I'm so excited, you guys. And remember that once it's ready to launch, like probably not next week, but the following week, I will be doing like multiple Q&As for Fully Nourished. I'll let you guys ask all the questions you need to ask before you actually pull the trigger and buy it. Like, I want to make sure that you are completely 100% sure that it's going to work for you. And if for whatever reason it doesn't, I will figure out some kind of return policy. So like, I'll offer something very fair. It is like an informational course, so it does, you know, add to my risk to say like, oh, I'll just take all returns. But honestly, I want it to be a proper fit. So if you purchase it and you go through it like really quickly and you overview it and you're like, this is just not something that I was looking for, then I would be happy to return your money. So look out for that week. I'm going to answer all the questions necessary to make you know that it's the right choice for you. And then in addition, even if you pulled the trigger and you're like, I truly don't think this is going to work for me, then I would be happy to refund you. Like, I don't want you purchasing something that is not going to be what you're looking for, if you know what I mean. No sourdough to buy in my town, so I can't compare the feeling after this bread and sourdough, feeling like it's okay. Thanks. Great. Cannot wait for FN. Used trying to keeping my health good while I'm waiting. And yes, it is a doctor that gave me pregnenolone. Wonderful. Pregnenolone is a wonderful anti-stress. It's so wonderfully when used in conjunction with proper nutrition and lifestyle. Like, it can be very, very helpful for reducing stress that's been placed on the body. I started tracking my temperature a month ago and it's all over the place. What does that mean? It means that you're needing to now start tracking what patterns are affecting your temperature. Food frequency, how often you're eating, what are you eating, where are you seeing your temperatures be good and where are you seeing your temperatures be poor. And your goal is to focus on the things that really regularly increase the temperature, but also, make sure your temperature and your pulse are within range. So if they're too high, that's showing that there's stress hormones playing a role. So remember, temperatures and pulse are a tool that you can utilize to start seeing what habits are working for you. My hair, body, head, and nails grow super quick. Is this due to androgens too, as well as my hirsutism, or not connected? I don't think that it's necessarily connected. That's great that your hair grows quick and But yeah, I mean, testosterone, okay, I shouldn't say it's all not connected, because testosterone can absolutely like increase all hair growth, including body hair growth, specifically DHT, that powerful form of testosterone. But other things are usually at play when there's facial hair growth involved. Prolactin, high DHEA, low progesterone, or high estrogen can also be factors when it comes to actually your hair follicles, like, I guess I say they're misbehaving. What do I look for in a gluten-free bread? It's really hard to find gluten-free bread that actually doesn't have a bunch of crappy ingredients. Like, that's really the thing with most gluten-free products, is they're actually not that great for you, for the most part. They usually have like crappy oils or crappy grains, or just like they're not what you would want to consume. So I just look for something that has, not like a million ingredients and doesn't have those crappy seed oils like canola oil or soybean oil, but I actually have a difficult time finding it. So that's why sometimes I just opt for, honestly, like a sourdough, like a traditional sourdough that's just flour, water, sour starter, and salt, because it just is less ingredients. But at the end of the day, if you don't tolerate like wheat products, even if it's sourdough properly, then maybe consider making your own. It's not that difficult, and like a spelt sourdough can be really easy to digest. Could you share some reliable sources for research? I love that you encourage us to be our own health advocates. What are some sources you use for research besides Google or Reddit, health studies? Yeah, so I very regularly use PubMed. However, you have to understand that when it comes to scientific studies, there are certain assumptions made, like from the scientists when they're starting a study. And so you have to also understand who the scientist is that's running the study, because if they're assuming certain things about the body that may or may not be true, then that whole study has just fallen into shambles. You know what I mean? And so I actually really, really enjoy the works of Ray Peat. He has wonderful articles on his website that have a million references. I also really love the website Functional Performance Systems. He also does extensive research and does lots of references. I really love there's a man named Georgy Dinkov that's very, very good, and he's always like about what's the newest metabolic research, and his website is Haidut, HAIDUT.me, M-E. And then there is there's research done just by regular scientists that I very regularly, reference their books and their guides, which I'm going to actually make a resource or a reference page on my website very soon that links you guys to my favorite books, my favorite places to do research, my favorite studies, things like that. So you guys can really go and like have a hub where you can actually go and start doing your own research, but that will get you started for sure. Savrine says, "Hi Jess, would love it if you shared the research articles you come across." Absolutely. I will share on my stories too that I read yesterday that were really, really interesting. The one that really just was amazing was the study that was done on keto and just how like low carb diets make you more insulin resistant and not less. Like, I was just mind blown because I knew it, but I didn't I guess there was no research to back it up quite yet, but they're starting to do more and more research into that. But yes, I would love that. I really it's hard. Instagram is just a hard place to get everything shared, and I am ready to get my blog going and really ramp it up so I can share. I think I'm gonna do probably a monthly review, what I've learned this month type of blog post, so you guys can go and see okay, my top 10 or top 15 research studies that I came across, and I'll do a little summary of what is found in them, and then if you want to go and read them more, you can. But I think something like that would be a good way to kind of get your guys' toes wet and show what you're looking for when you're doing your own research, because science is so political. It's so sad, but science is very much pushed where the funding goes, and not every scientist is, like I said, when you research and you're looking at a research study, you have to also wonder if certain assumptions were made about your biology that are not correct, and if that's the case, then that whole research study is faulty because their knowledge of the body is faulty. Zero cravings this past month, eating carb, dairy, fruit, vegetables, meat, all well cooked, no nuts. Sometimes crave oats, but don't know how to prepare it. And do you have any opinion about kiwi or banana? Isn't it so awesome when you don't restrict, you just feel really satisfied and you don't like want to eat junk food? Isn't that so crazy? I'm so proud of you. So if you crave oats, eat oats. I think that like sprouted gluten-free oats are the best. Quick oats tend to be like, they're already like kind of pre-broken down, and so your body doesn't have to do as much work. I really like slow cooking oats, so actually putting them in a crock pot the night before and getting them nice and like slow cooked, like they're just cooking and cooking and cooking. The more cooked your grain starches are, the better they are to digest. Just the digestibility is easier. You know, the more that starch is broken down, the quicker your body's going to be able to break it down. So, you know, if you crave oats, do some oats. And then kiwi is really, really high in vitamin C and actually very helpful in some cases to kind of like, you know, it's just like a gentle fiber. But bananas are one thing that are very more starchy than they are fruit. So a lot of people don't do well with bananas just because their starches feed a lot of gut bacteria. However, that's not always the case. And bananas and kiwi are both very high in serotonin, and that can actually affect your moods. And so you don't want to do too many of them. Like I wouldn't excessively eat them, like wouldn't eat like 18 kiwis a day, you know, but like having a couple bananas a week and having a couple kiwis a week, like why, who cares, you know, like eat them, enjoy them, especially if you love them. Currently have a sty. What causes them? Okay, so like a lot of inflammation can cause styes. Also, it can be like a virus or some kind of bacteria that has gotten into the tear duct. Or it could be vitamin deficiencies like B vitamins or fat solubles like vitamin A, D, E, and K. So it can be a lot, but it does make me think that it's bacterial. I used to get styes all the time when I have really severe gut issues. And tea tree oil, not applied, but like a warm compress with a little bit of tea tree and mostly just warm water does tend to help, as does like chamomile tea bags, which are both very anti-inflammatory and antibacterial. And so it makes me think that it has something bacterial, but honestly I'm not sure what causes styes. I just know that like eye infections and anything near the eye can be caused by fat soluble vitamin deficiency. But yeah, I'm really not sure. That's not medical advice. It's just me kind of like I'm not sure, but they do suck. I'm really sorry. I know they're just the worst. I got the most benefit from actually like brewing tea bags, like chamomile specifically, and then putting them in the fridge to get them nice and cold, and then just like putting them on, you know, or opposite, doing them warm. Can we supplement with vitamin E and magnesium through foods like almond butter or coconut oil, or should we take pill supplements? Thank you. Well, honestly, to get enough vitamin E, you have to consume excessive amounts of nuts, which comes with the polyunsaturated fat. So if you're like trying to really protect yourself from the PUFAs and get vitamin E from your food, it's very difficult to get both. You can get vitamin E from both egg yolks and liver. So that can be kind of something, if you're eating plenty of those foods, you can technically get enough. But sometimes supplementing can be a good option, especially when you're struggling with like symptoms of estrogen dominance. But again, like it's not necessary to supplement. You can get it from your food. And then when it comes to magnesium, you can, and coconut oil also has some vitamin E in it. I wanted to say that. But magnesium is one of those things that, if you're careful, you can get enough. So doing lots and lots of well-cooked greens or putting greens in your broth, that can be really helpful to get magnesium. Doing like, you can do like chocolate, like cacao. But my favorite way to get magnesium is to make my own magnesium bicarbonate. You can just take milk of magnesia, mix it with mineral water, you can YouTube that, and make your own, and then like consume like maybe like a fourth a cup of that liquid mixed in water. If you consume too much, it will totally give you diarrhea. So you want to kind of like work your way up to what feels good, but you can definitely make your own magnesium supplement, which for a time, especially if you're metabolically like, I guess, unstable, you do have more needs for magnesium, but that doesn't mean you can't get it from your food. You totally can, especially when you can hang on to hang on to it in your cells. Buckwheat is a seed, though, not a grain. So does it work the same as grains in terms of turning off nutrient absorption? Yeah, I mean, nuts and seeds and grains are very similar. They're all baby plants. So they all have a lot of phytates on them. Seeds do tend to be a little easier to digest than grains, but not by much. Even the people that popularized nuts and seeds, which was the paleo community, like Rob Wolf and like the earlier paleo, like I guess advocates, like the reason why so many people are just like excessively consuming nuts and seeds now, they even recommend like 1 or maybe 2 servings per week. And I feel like just this health and wellness community and paleo community just took the world by storm with nuts and seeds, and it was like, oh my gosh, I can't consume dairy, so I'm just gonna consume so many nuts and seeds, and I'm just like, it's not great for you, it's so inflammatory. So, you know, when it comes to nuts and seeds, it's very, I guess, relative on the person, but if you're consuming lots of nuts and seeds and you can't heal, there's probably a problem. So it's one of those things where I know buckwheat is a seed, just like quinoa is a seed, but they're considered seed-like or grain-like seeds. So they are more grain than seed. They're similar. Just like there are some nuts and fruits and things that are like half of one thing and half, just because like something is technically a seed doesn't mean it doesn't have grain-like properties. And so it's one of those things where, again, like I don't think rules really should apply to anyone's food. If you tolerate buckwheat well, it doesn't cause gut issues, it doesn't cause digestive issues, your gut's great, your liver's great, your hormones are great, why make stress about something that it does not need to be stressed about? You don't want to restrict just to restrict. However, if there's things that aren't healing or things aren't moving in the right direction, or you're like, why can't I heal? And you're consuming a lot of these nutrient binders that are high in lectins and phytates and oxalates, then maybe it's time to tweak things and try a lifestyle without it for a little bit. I hope that makes sense. I just think that like your food should really work for you, and that's going to look so different for everybody. So one person might be able to consume buckwheat and be totally fine, and the other person is going to be like, oh my gosh, it wrecks me. But at the end of the day, remember that traditional cultures have always soaked, sprouted, fermented their grains. Always. Always, 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 because they knew that they digested things better and it prevented diseases. Also, do you really think that ancient cultures would have figured out a way to refine grains and remove the bran from the grain and only utilize the starch because they were just bored one day? They were like, oh, let's just decide, like, you know, with all of our non-modern technology, to go through the work that it takes to separate the bran from the actual starch inside. No, they saw that the digestibility was better when they prepared grains properly. So it's like one of those things where, you know, we kind of have it like really screwed up in this Western world. We say like, oh, you know, nuts are good for you. And it's like, well, you know, they might have some nutrient benefits in them, but how are they actually interacting with your physiology and your body and your cells? That's a whole different story. Have you ever suffered from costochondritis? No, and I actually don't even know what that is. I don't know what everything is, you guys. I don't know everything, unfortunately, so I'm not really sure. Should we avoid starches when healing gut for IBS? Again, that's something that you have to decide for yourself. Usually people have a tolerance for starches, and different types of starches are totally different. Remember, the fiber that is consumed with the starch is totally going to decide how quickly that starch is digested. That's why I just said I hate whole grains, is because whole grains come with the bran, and the bran is fiber that's going to slowly digest, making sure that that starch and that bran make it all the way to the large intestine and even in the small intestine, and it's going to cause issues. So that's why people with IBS do tend to see like lower fiber diets help them out for a time being. And that goes the same for SIBO. But I don't think avoiding starches is necessary unless you truly do need to avoid starches for a period of time. So it's kind of relative on the person. What does it mean when you have slow wound healing? your body's very stressed. Your body's not going to devote energy, time, nutrients to healing something that is not a priority when your body is like literally, breaking down its own internal systems. You really have to see stress, you guys, high cortisol, adrenaline, stress hormones, as your body eating itself alive. That's really how you have to see stress. It's your body's adaptation to being placed under stress, and it doesn't have the fuel to sustain itself. And so what does it have to do? It eats itself alive. That's how you need to see stress. And so your goal, if you have, slow wound healing and you're not losing weight and you have high stress hormones and anxiety, and your goal is really to stop your body from eating itself alive. And the only way to do that is to give your body the fuel that it needs so it doesn't have to do it any longer. I hope that makes sense, but that is the biggest thing. How is your temp drop working? I honestly haven't purchased it yet. I was like going back and forth, and I was all for ordering it. And then I just kind of like, I didn't like how I usually just take my temperature with a BBT or like a basal body thermometer, and it was getting such a different reading in my armpit than I was underneath my tongue, which made me think like, oh, and then I started doing like some research on armpit temperature. And remember guys, I am like a questioner. Like I'm like somebody that like literally has to question everything. And like before I make a purchase, I'm like, oh, what about this? And what about this? And so like to the point where I'm like, I don't know if temp drops for me or not. Like I'm just using my regular basal body thermometer. I really do want to try temp drop because I like the convenience of it. And I was interested in doing OvuSense, but I just feel like it's so weird to like, I don't know if I would like want to wear a thermometer like in my vagina while I sleep. Like I just don't know if that's something that I would want to sustain. So I haven't bought temp drop yet. That's a long story to say, I'm a freak. No, I just like, it's hard for me to make decisions, and it's just because I question everything. And so I haven't done it yet. And the basal body thermometer to me is like a little bit more accurate than my armpit temp. Also, do you have any suggestions for something crunchy to eat? I cut nuts and seeds, not craving them, but something crunchy, yes. Yes, so like I do lots of, when I'm like crunching, need to crunch, I will do potato chips fried in coconut oil, like the Jackson's Honest ones. Or I'll do just like crunchy vegetables, like crunchy carrots, like I'll cut some carrots, red bell pepper, cucumber, and just like crunch on that. And I'll put salt on those and like even dip them in my sour cream and onion dip, which I'm like obsessed with, like I always talk about. And or I'll do like crunchy fruits as well. Like that can be really helpful. But yeah, I know it's hard, like when you like to crunch on like nuts and seeds, it can be like a difficult transition for sure. Do you think all combination birth controls are bad for PCOS? Felt so much better when on it a few years ago, despite a year of seeing a naturopath and trying to naturally improve PCOS. Has your naturopath given you bioidentical progesterone? I think all combination birth controls are horrible for PCOS because PCOS is an ovulation problem, and combination birth controls completely shut down your cycle. Birth control shuts down your cycle, which if you're like, you just feel better on it, or for whatever reason you want to just suppress your symptoms, that's fine. But you have to understand that that's what it's doing. It's just suppressing symptoms. Just like someone has endometriosis and they take birth control and they feel better, that doesn't mean they were healed. It means that it's symptom suppressing. And remember, there are risks that come with birth control. Your brain is impaired, your blood sugar is impaired, your body is, your risk for heart disease goes up, your risk for cancer goes up because you're taking synthetic estrogens, which are known to be very damaging to our physiology. And so at the end of the day, when it comes to birth control, yes, it is bad for the body. Shutting down your cycle, you cannot shut your fertility on and off like a light switch without consequence. We just have to acknowledge that. Now, there's no judgment there. There's nobody saying that there's a right or wrong for you. And if you want to just suppress symptoms, that is fine. There's nothing wrong with that if you felt better. But you also have to ask yourself, why did I feel better on birth control? Most likely because progesterone is so low. And you probably had low progesterone before, and you probably have low progesterone now. And so you should really ask your naturopath or functional doctor to give you some freaking bioidentical progesterone. Get some progesterone in your life. And so many women who felt better on birth control get bioidentical progesterone, and they're like, oh, oh, I see it now. And you have to understand that you are probably what's causing you to feel so poorly now is the effects of being on a combination birth control. While you're on it, your body, your tissues are storing up those xenoestrogens. And so after you get off of it, your body's like, okay, now I've got to detoxify these xenoestrogens. And you're also depleted of nutrients. And so it's very difficult to make progesterone after birth control. This is why it takes a while for women to actually begin ovulating again. So overall, like, I just try to tell you what's up, like the truth. And I believe that birth control is one of the worst things for a woman with PCOS. Honest to God truth. Now, doctors are going to completely disagree with me, and I'm not giving you medical advice, but from what I've seen, research-wise, study-wise, what's being covered up right now, it is so scary. And I personally do not want any woman to be experimented on, which is what birth control is. It's a mass experiment on women who, let's see what happens when we shut down women's fertility. And it's a scary thing. Like, it really does. Like, there's just more studies coming out each and every day that birth control, like, makes women more likely to be put on an antidepressant later on in life, or anti-anxiety meds later on in life, or to develop thyroid issues or heart disease. And that's not to scare you. I really don't want to scare you. I just truly care for you. And I know it can be really hard, and it can be very tempting to want to just like go on something that makes your life easier. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you decide to do. You just kind of have to weigh the pros and cons and ask yourself, what you want from your life and what you want truly from your future as well. Because sometimes when we feel bad now, we end up, or when we feel good now and we kind of make those sacrifices to feel good in the moment, we can actually end up really regretting that in the future. And again, this is not something that it's no judgment. It's one of those things where you have to decide what's best for you in your life. And as a woman, that's going to just differ from person to person. And that is completely up to you. There's no right or wrong, and there's no yes or no in that situation. That is all you. And you should never, ever feel bad if you decide that that is what's best for you. Do you think that consuming a rock here, when trying to heal gut issues is okay, or will it cause a rock carrot? I was like, a rock ear. I'm like, what is this? Okay, so do you think that consuming a raw carrot when trying to heal gut issues is okay, or will it cause more issues? So remember, when you consume a raw carrot, the goal of that carrot, like I've said, when you set out a carrot on the counter, it does not rot, right? It doesn't get moldy, it doesn't ferment, it actually just shrivels up because it's so antibacterial, it's like an antibiotic. And so it's doing the same thing in your gut. It's binding to estrogens, it's binding to bacteria, and it's carrying that out of the body. And we want those chunks to come out on the other end. That's the one thing that I always say. If a raw carrot comes out on the other end, it's doing its job. It's kind of scraping your gut walls and really carrying things out of the body, which is what we want. And I do think that it's actually so beneficial for healing the gut, because remember, when you're healing the gut, you are also really trying to limit and lower estrogens in the gut and endotoxins, which are those toxins called lipopolysaccharides, or LPS, that the bacteria in your gut create, those inflammatory toxins. And we want to bind to as many of those as possible to take the burden off the liver. And so I think eating a raw carrot every day is essential for gut healing. Sorry, I'll start. No, I got what you were saying. Jess, I know you are now against the keto diet, but it's honestly the only diet I feel alive on. I have so much energy compared to other diets. I'm torn because I know keto isn't ideal. What to do? Yeah, so you have to ask yourself why the keto diet makes you feel so good. Remember that your body has to manufacture glucose, raising cortisol and adrenaline. Cortisol and adrenaline can give you that artificial energy, and it can make you feel like, oh, go, 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 mentally clear, like I have drive, I have this, I have that. That's not necessarily good. Like, relying on stress hormones is not going to be a sustainable thing long term, and which is why at the 1 or 2 year mark, you really start to see your body breaking down. You can no longer tolerate any foods. You really, you start to have low energy, your hair starts to fall out, you begin to struggle with acne, things like that. However, like we always say, there is, I guess there's, it's important to do what works for you. And some women are so tied, like they're maritally tied to the keto diet, that I just have to say, like, you need to just do what works best for you. Just know that if you start to see those symptoms of system breakdown, this is what is occurring. Your body is manufacturing its own glucose, right? And it's doing that by breaking your tissues down to send glucose to the liver. You have to ask yourself why you feel so good on a keto diet and so crappy on other diets. It's probably a really poor gut health, probably a liver that is impaired, and most likely hormonal imbalance, specifically low progesterone. That takes time to heal. It takes time to reverse, and it's not easy. And so sometimes keto can be a really helpful symptom suppressing diet, and it is totally better than a standard American diet, right? Like you know, like anything is better than eating crap, and a whole foods keto diet can still be wonderful for your health and be way better than relying on crap. And so you have to do mostly what works best for you, and that's the only important thing. And at the end of the day, I don't care what diet you're on as long as you feel your best and you feel like your best version of yourself. Hell, go for whatever you feel best on. You know what I mean? My goal is to get you guys optimal health and to have you guys, encourage you guys to look deeper and get to the root cause rather than relying on symptom suppressing diets like AIP and keto and things like that, because eventually they do break down your stress systems and your thyroid and your metabolism. So when you go back to eating normal food because you're forced to, which many women are eventually, they can no longer tolerate it. And I've seen it just be so devastating for women. And that's why I'm such an advocate against keto, because there's just more and more research coming out day after day that's so damaging to the liver and it's damaging to the gut microbiome. And if you feel better on keto, there's a reason why. The biggest reason why women feel better on keto is because their gut bacteria is so messed up that the only thing that makes them feel better is by starving their gut bacteria. And that's what keto does. It starves their gut bacteria. However, it does not fix the issue. And so get your gut bacteria handled and figured out, and watch you feel better on a diet that adds more carbohydrates in. Sometimes I notice that when I exercise during the day, my sleep pattern will be disrupted and it's harder for me to fall asleep. My body is exhausted, but my brain won't shut off. Any suggestions? Yeah, so you might not be able to tolerate exercise. You might be stimulating too much cortisol. So maybe experiment with a week of no exercise, or experiment with exercising a little bit less hard and see how that feels. I would try to experiment a little bit with the types of exercise. All right, Instagram's cutting me off, you guys. I'll go live for like 20 more minutes if you guys want.